We're so glad you tuned in today. The following program is brought to you by our friends and partners of Grace and Truth.
Hello, welcome to Grace and Truth. I'm David Moore. Before we begin our lesson here today, our message here today, I want to encourage you. Today I'm going to be talking about some controversial things, and I just want to encourage you that if you have any questions or prayer, you can always email us, or if you're on YouTube, you can leave us comments. We will get back to you if you have any type of questions or prayer. It'd be our great honor and pleasure to pray with you and pray for you today. Again, this message will be something controversial. My goal is not to offend at all. My goal is just to speak to truth in love. And so if you believe that this message is a blessing to you and God is leading you you want to give into this ministry a free will offering, we encourage you to do so. We really appreciate everything that you do. The message we're going to talk about today is politics, science, and religion. Whenever people talk about these type of things in a public setting, people just actually they really want to avoid it. They want to avoid. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk about religion. Just keep all your viewpoints to yourself. But now is not the time to keep things to yourself. That's not what Jesus called us as Christians to do. And this message is for Christians. If you're a Christian, this message is for you. We're going to take off on science first, science and religion. We're going to talk about this, an occurrence that science claims happened billions of years ago, something called the Big Bang, okay? Let me give you the definition. The Big Bang Theory is defined as the theory that the universe may have been created in a huge explosion, at least 12 billion years ago. The universe was created in some type of big explosion 12 billion years ago. You know, so where did we come from? Where did you and I come from? Where did this world come from? Who or what created us? Don't believe the hype. The definition of a theory is hypothesis, conjecture, speculation, assumption, guess, hunch, or feeling. This is what they're sharing with your children and my children in schools today, public schools usually. And they're telling you that this is in fact a fact when it really is hypothesis, conjecture, a feeling. Sounds like religion to me. Sounds like religion to me. They're teaching our children this as fact, and even worse, they're trying to tell us that this is the truth. We cannot allow the world to teach our children the truth. The world doesn't know the truth. God has placed the primary responsibility for teaching our children on the parents. I used to be on a school board, and we did a lot of amazing things for the school board, but we found out that, you know, public schools, traditional public schools and traditional charter schools, and even homeschool children, it was different. Homeschool children, traditional charter schools, they learned at a faster rate. They read a lot better. Their math was a lot better. English was a lot better. Writing skills, all of these things were a lot better. And the common denominator in why they did better than traditional public schools is parental involvement. Charter schools, usually they have a long waiting list for people to come, for you to go to a charter school. And the reason why that is because they're successful. And the reason why they're successful is because most charter schools require the parent to take an active role in the raising of their children. And that's what God has called us to do. The raising of our children cannot be left to the world system because the world system really, it does not know the truth. It barely knows the facts. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6 puts it this way. Train up a child in the way in which he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. It's our responsibility to train him up. The reason why our young is having such a problem nowadays with violence, a lack of self-discipline, learning disabilities, is because they haven't been trained up in the right way. They've been trained, but not in the right way. And now when they get old, they don't depart from it. It's our responsibility as parents to make sure that our children are getting the correct education. And this thinking that some kind of a Big Bang theory is legitimate, well, that's one of the reasons why we're having so many problems here. Why do I have a problem with this theory? Because it's just not scientific. It's just foolishness. It's foolishness. The spiritual principle is this. In 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1, it tells us, knowledge puffs up, but love's build up. The man who thinks he knows something does not yet know as he ought to know. But the man who loves God is known by God. The reason why we're having problems in our public schools is because basically they've taken God out of the public schools. Okay, and the only way that we're going to grow in our wisdom and knowledge and understanding is if God is a part of it. If we take God away from it, then make no mistake, we're not going to learn the things that we ought to learn. We're not going to grow in the areas that we need to grow. And so this has been a concerted effort to eliminate God from our public schools, eliminate even the parents. It's even difficult for a parent to get involved. You know, I want to encourage you. You have to get involved in your child's education. You have to get involved. Let's go back to this Big Bang theory. Why do I say it's foolishness? Well, there are two basic laws of science, astrophysics, two basic laws. And I'm not trying to get into a scientific debate, okay? This is a religious programming. But, you know, you can't separate science from religion. You can't separate science from God. Okay, God created everything. He created everything, including science, One of the things, the first basic law is matter cannot be created nor destroyed. Exactly what they say, it says matter can neither be created or destroyed. Okay? Matter cannot be created or destroyed. In other words, whatever we see here as far as matter is concerned, if we try to destroy it, it just changes to a different form of matter. If we just burn up this wood right here, it just turns to ashes, a different form of matter. It cannot be created nor destroyed. And then the second law of science is cause and effect. We're the effect. What is the cause? Science say that this is some kind of a Big Bang theory, that some kind of big old explosion happened and caused the formation of all life in the universe. That's just foolishness, okay? They've tried many times in scientific experiments to recreate the Big Bang theory. Of course they failed, okay? Of course they failed. There's nothing to it. There's no way. You know, one thing I would like to ask the scientists, if there was a Big Bang, where did the ingredients come from the Big Bang? You know, where did the molecules and atoms come from in order to cause that explosion? You can't have an explosion without some type of a cause. And so where do they come from? The problem with this is they don't have the love of God. They don't have the love of God, and so their knowledge is muted. Their knowledge is something that doesn't attain to the place that it ought to attain to. And because they don't involve God in their lives. You know, a lot of people say, as far as that they can understand where light comes from. They can see that electrical energy forms light patterns and things like that. But where does darkness come from? You know, darkness is a reality. The absence of light is darkness. But where does darkness come from? See, they don't explain it. In these scientific experiments, they call this the God particle. They try to find a certain God particle. And so they do a vacuum in a certain area of vacuum and try to recreate the Big Bang theory. And of course, they failed every time because you can't create something out of nothing. But where did the vacuum come from? No light. Where does darkness come from? Well, the Bible has the answer. And let's go to Job chapter 38, verse 2 and 3. Where God spoke to Job out of the whirlwind and asked him some questions. And he said, "Who is this that darkens my counsel with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me." You know, God wanted to question Job. And we ought to be asking questions. A lot of you, even religious people, don't feel you have the understanding or the knowledge to question God. But ask God questions. If you don't know why certain things happen, ask God about it. Pray about it. There's nothing wrong with seeking. If the Bible tells us if you seek, you're going to find. If you knock, then the door will be open for you. Some of us are too afraid to even ask, too afraid to even knock because we're afraid of the answer. Don't be afraid. Only believe. Seek and you shall find. Seek and you shall find. Let's go on to Job chapter 38, verse 19. We ought to ask questions, especially if you're in school. And what God asked Job is because Job was a little arrogant. Okay, Job was arrogant about the things that was happening to him. A lot of people don't see that, but it's right there. We're not going to talk about Job right now. That's for another time. But it says, "What is the way to the abode of light? And where does darkness reside? Can you take them to their places? Do you know the path to their dwellings? Surely you know, for you are already born, and you have lived so many years." You know, it is amazing to me how they tell you about the Big Bang, evolution, and all these type of things. And all these things happened millions and millions of years ago. They were not there. How in the world can they tell us as truth, as fact, something that happened millions and millions of years ago? If indeed it did happen. They were not there. Amen? And that's just the problem that I have with that. You know, it's not something that is scientific fact. There are certain things that are scientific fact that you know, combustible engines, aerodynamics, all these type of things are scientific facts. But this theory of the Big Bang, that's just foolishness. That's just foolishness. Many can tell us, like I told you before, the source of light. But where does darkness come from? The Bible puts it this way in Psalms 139, verse 12. It says, "Indeed, the darkness shall not hide from you, but the night shines as the day. The darkness and light are both alike to you." Darkness and light, all of the universe, they're all alike to God. If God was sitting in a room, there was no light at all, he still could see clearly. He still could see clearly. If there was a bright light blinding everyone around, God would still be able to see clearly. Okay, he is the creator of all of this. He is the creator. And if you take him out of our schools, if you take him out of our science, then basically you're just dealing with man's idea of the material, man's notions and man's thinking. And that's not something that we want our children to do. That's not something that I would encourage you to allow your children to do. We're going to continue this in a few. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll be right back. God bless.
Thank you for watching. We hope you were blessed by today's teaching. If you would like prayer or have questions about the ministry, we would love to hear from you. Email us at graceandtruth.tv@gmail.com or mail to P.O. Box 80482, Simpsonville, South Carolina 29680. The vision of this ministry is to reach people with the gospel of grace, to make a difference, change lives. You can be a part of what God is doing. Would you consider becoming one of our partners? Donate today, and may God bless you.